Be mindful of what you say. Be sincere when you pray. Today could be your last day. Bear each other, no malice. Greed and faith can coexist in the same heart.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, dear viewers, to another live episode of Gems of the Heart. And I'm your host for the program, Junaid Dar. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for bringing us together to serve His beautiful deen, to give us the opportunity to remember Him and to remember our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Furthermore, dear viewers, I'd like to thank all of you for tuning in and giving us your continual support. MashaAllah, over the last 2 weeks, you've been working very hard with us, answering our questions, doing your homework, being involved with us, and I have all of your responses in front of me, and we're going to be talking about those shortly. But I would also like to say here that we apologize for last week's episode. Unfortunately, we had some technical problems, so we were unable to come on air. But inshallah ta'ala, from now on and forwards, we will not be missing any episodes, so stay tuned with us, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept this project, this work from us all. Dear viewers, in today's program, as you can see the title across your screens, we are talking about Aqidah and the heart. Now, many a times we read books on Aqidah, or we listen to lectures on Aqidah, or we go to courses on Aqidah, talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, talking about the angels, talking about the unseen, or talking about the sunnah. But yet we come home, or after finish reading, we don't have an increase in iman. Our heart hasn't changed. We haven't moved forward. Why is that the case? It's because we are not studying these things in a practical manner, not understanding the relationship that these things have with our heart. So inshallah ta'ala, today we're going to be looking at all of these subjects in a very comprehensive way and connect them with the matters pertaining to the heart. So let us begin our program. And also like to remind you, dear viewers, that our phone lines will be open. When we come back from the break, we will open up the questions, and we will, inshallah ta'ala, be looking forward to your responses. So let's begin by introducing our Shaykh, and then we'll go into our program for the day. I'd like to begin by introducing Sheikh Ibrahim Zidan, who, mashallah ta'ala, is the main man here working with us on Gems of the Heart. Sheikh, I'd like to begin by saying Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa barakatuh. Barakallah feek.
Okay, thank you very much. Sheikh, mashallah, the viewers have been very busy doing your homework and doing all the things you have said, and we will come to that after the break. But my first question, when we talk about purifying the heart and connecting that with Aqidah, can I ask, does this have any connection with the sunnah, or can this purification process take place however I feel like doing so?
No. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah. Purification of the heart or the soul, this is something that is mentioned in the Quran and in the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is part of this religion, part of the deen of Islam. One of the jobs of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is that he purify the hearts of his followers. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, لَقَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِذْ بَعَثَ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَإِنْ كَانُوا مِنْ قَبْلُ لَفِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he recites the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unto them, unto the believers, and he purify their souls, and he teach them the book and the hikmah, which is the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which they were before in clear astray. So this is part of the job of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We all seek to be purified, to have a purification of our hearts, and that's basically when we're talking about the deeds done by the heart.
Okay.
The problem is, many people, they link this to their feelings. So they feel good, that means they are purified. And if they don't feel good, that means they're not purified.
Okay.
This is something that we need to put that aside. It's about following the truth and the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So part of our aqidah, part of our belief, that the only way for us to purify our souls is by following the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The most individual ever walked on the face of earth that has a pure heart is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they followed the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's why they had the purest of all hearts.
Okay.
And there's no way anyone can have a pure heart unless they follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and these companions radiallahu anhum. So this is a matter of belief. This is a matter of aqidah that we have to have in our hearts. And then we'll see how that works. But again, this is a belief that we should not change down the line by taking things from people. Try this, it purify your soul. Say this, do this. Where is that in the Quran and the Sunnah and the way of the early generations of Islam? We have to stay away from that.
So even the process of purification, it has its guidelines coming out of the Quran and Sunnah. Is that correct?
Correct. It's not left to the individuals. It's all from the wahy revelation from Allah.
Okay. Okay, Sheikh, I want to develop on that a little bit further, because we have now many people around the world, or many Muslims who affiliate themselves with purification or tazkiyah, but yet we find that some of these things may or may not be in line with the Sunnah. So I think it's something that needs to be discussed.
And they would take an evidence that they are doing what is right because it feels so good. And they see dreams, for example, or it works, or it makes me make my salah in so much khushu', or it makes me give more charity. So they would take their outcome or their actions as an evidence that they are purifying themselves in the right way. This is absolutely wrong.
Okay.
You would find disbelievers, and they're very nice in generosity and so on, and they're very soft-hearted and so on. It doesn't mean that their disbelief is correct. So before actions, we need to have ilm.
Okay.
The ilm or the knowledge comes before action.
Right.
So to know what purify the souls, based on the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, this is a must. And then we need to have the patience to apply that. And wait for the feelings and all of these things. It will come, inshaAllah ta'ala. But that's not what we seek in the first instant. The first thing is that true or not? Is that the way of the Prophet ﷺ or not?
Okay, Sheikh, on that point, I would like to also ask the concept of dreams, like you mentioned. Obviously, no one can claim wahi, that's finished. But people will say that dreams have a meaning. So if somebody had a dream and said, I saw the Prophet ﷺ, he told me to purify my soul, I must do this and must do that, then what is our response to this?
This is a very important question, because as the Prophet ﷺ said, that the shaitan would never resemble me in the dream. So if you saw me in the dream, that means you saw me truly.
Right.
And that's why people would take this and they would say, I saw the Prophet ﷺ, and they start innovating in the deen. Of course, that's not permissible. What the meaning of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ is that the shaitan would never come into the image of the Prophet ﷺ. That's true. But a person might be in his dream, as the ulama they say, and the shaitan would convince that person that the one that he's seeing is the Prophet ﷺ, but he's not seeing the Prophet ﷺ.
Right, okay.
It's the shaitan whispering to him. So the image of the Prophet ﷺ is described in the books, of course, with so much details. Plus, this religion has been finished and completed and perfected. So there's no such a thing for someone to add something into the religion after the Prophet ﷺ. And as one of the scholars of the early generations of Islam, when he was debating with someone about the subject of dreams, because that other person, he said, the Prophet ﷺ come to my dream, and he is the one that told me today to say this, adhkar, matters of remembrance of Allah that purify the souls, but it's innovation in the religion, even has sometimes shirk in it. So the scholar told him, who is more beloved to the Prophet ﷺ? You, after 700 years, or Ali ibn Abi Talib? He said, of course, Ali ibn Abi Talib. You can't say anything other than that. Who's more beloved to the Prophet ﷺ? Muawiyah radiallahu anhu or you? He said, Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. So he said, why did the Prophet ﷺ didn't come in their dreams to bring the fitna that came about to an end? If that's the case.
Allah.
And he would come after 700 years for you to invent and to make up something from the religion. So yes, dreams are part of prophethood, and it comes with glad tidings and so on, but not to initiate something in the deen.
Okay.
And not to be one of the evidences of what right and what is wrong, because we're always referred back to the wahy, Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet. This religion is based on knowledge,
right,
not based on sometimes hallucinations and things like that.
Sheikh, it might sound a bit funny, but if we look at the earlier generations, their lives are full of action and not so many dreams. But when we look at the later generation, we find there's lots of dreams, but there's not many actions.
Allah musta'an. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy. But again, dreams are a valid thing, and there's a hadith about it. But it comes into the subject of glad tidings.
Okay.
Good sign, warnings, has meanings, of course, certain signs and so on. But not to implement religion or not to invent religion.
Okay. Because we're talking about the Sunnah, let's develop that a little bit further. Is there a connection with the heart and the Sunnah, and also part of the Sunnah being the fact that you cling on to the Jama'ah or the wider group of Muslims?
Now, this is something that the ulama of Ahl Sunnah, they always mentioned in their books of Aquidah. Once the split happened among the Muslim Ummah, so they would make sure that this is something that is clearly mentioned in matters of belief, that Islam is the Sunnah and the Sunnah is the Islam. They're never separated.
Okay.
And that we have to cling to the Jama'ah of the Muslims. The Jama'ah of the Muslims is not a group with a leader or things like this that scattered all over the place. This is not what is meant. What is meant by the Jama'ah is the Sahaba radiallahu anhu.
Okay.
And this is what we need to cling to. This is the way that we follow. how they purified their souls, the same way we do the same way so that we purify our souls. That's why they say the jama'ah can be one person. You can be the jama'ah, as one of the early generations of Islam he said.
Right.
If you are the one that is following the way of the Prophet ﷺ, the way it was at the time of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum and the Salaf al-Salih. And to mention as an example of this, sometimes we tend to want an immediate gratification to our feelings, so that we feel that we're doing something right or whatever. Listening to the Quran, right? Quran is the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it should bring joy in the heart and so on. Person listens to the Quran, doesn't get too much of a feeling, right? But after that, he listens to, say, a song, religious song, talks about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he feels tears in his eyes, and he gets so much emotionally moved, and he feels that he's so much purified. Is that true? Definitely not. This is how the deception of things are. It gets quicker because the Quran is aziz, the Quran is honored. This is the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It does not go into the filth. We need to purify first for us to enjoy the Quran. So that's why most people, they don't take the right route to purify themselves, so they're not patient. Okay. They read the Quran, a few days, few months, and they associate other things with it, and they don't feel anything, so they would seek other ways. Be patient with the Quran. Remove all of these things and the nasheeds and all of that waste of your life. Just focus on the Quran, be patient with the Quran, purifying ourselves from sins and so on, following the way of the Prophet ﷺ, and be patient. This is the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to follow. Eventually it will come. And when it comes, it's the real thing.
And subhanAllah, Shaykh, if you think about it, that the words of a human being are making you cry, but the words of the Almighty are not causing any effect.
And that's what even the ulama, they say in the dua in the Taraweeh in Ramadan, for example. You would find people weeping and weeping and weeping in the dua in the salah, but then the Quran was recited a few minutes before, and nobody was weeping. And it was the opposite at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. The dua was short in the Taraweeh, and the salah was long. And they would weep when they listened to the Quran. And the hearts were moved and changed when they listened to the Quran. So that means we have things to cure first when it comes to the subject of purification of the soul. And that's why it's a very serious matter, based on wahi, based on revelation. And also we were not seeking the feelings. That means if it didn't come, then we'll take another route. No, we're slaves of Allah. So we follow what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us, whether Allah provide for us with feelings or not. This is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is shakur. He is the most grateful subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when a person is steadfast, that he would not deviate from the way of the Prophet ﷺ, then this is the way to purify ourselves.
Okay, so what we are saying very clearly is that step number one when it comes to purification is that we have to be in line with the Sunnah.
Definitely.
Okay, excellent. And secondly, Sheikh, we're saying also that our love for the companions, it's part of the process of cleaning our hearts. Is that true as well?
Very true.
Okay.
Why? Because part of the deeds to be done by the heart is the love and hate. And if a person loves the wrong thing and hate the wrong thing, right, that means the heart is corrupted. So it would never enjoy any means of purification. It's already corrupted. So that's why those who would hate the most people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves after the prophets. After the prophets, who are the most group of people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala love and pleased with? The Sahaba, the companions radiallahu anhu. So whoever hates those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala love the most, he is punished in this life, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make him extreme in his hate and make his heart so much corrupted, even if he looks like he's purified and so on. Why? Because this is something that negates matters of aqidah, matters of belief.
Okay.
So having the love in our hearts to the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, this is part of our religion, not part of history. It's part of our deen, part of our aqidah, part of the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's a way to purify our souls so that we can follow their way. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that purifies the souls.
Right.
And we can never attain something from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unless we are obedient to Him.
Okay.
It's not a decision we make, we just take the means. But as far as the end result, it's all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay, and also, Sheikh, when we talk about the companions, is it fair for us to say, especially when we're talking about purification of the soul, of the heart, that we have to adhere to the understanding of the companions, or can we take the understanding of somebody who comes in the latter generations, maybe he had a better understanding of the text?
Right. This is definitely it's a deviant idea for a person to think that those who have later generations that are more guided, than the earlier generations.
Okay.
Because this is something that negates what's mentioned in the Quran. And what the Prophet ﷺ, he said, خَيْرُ النَّاسِ قَرْنِي ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ. The best of the people are my generation and the next generation and the next generation. So any goodness in this ummah, if it doesn't come from these first 3 generations, there's not really goodness in there, unless they follow their footsteps and they follow their way. So it's part of our Aquidah. This is what we need to be united on. Because this is part of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, and this is the way of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And when it comes to the subject of purification, how their ibadah was, how did they make dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? When people, for example, invent ways of making dhikr. A very simple question. Did the companions radiallahu anhum, did this way of dhikr that you do, is it permissible for us to do something that they didn't do in matters of ibadah? Did they know about it or not? If they knew about it, why didn't they do it? If they didn't know about it, was it good enough for them not to know about it? Definitely the person has to say, yes, it was good enough for them because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was pleased with them. So if it's good enough for them, why is it not good enough for us to have the spaciousness in what they did and to leave what they didn't do? It matters again of purification of the soul and the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the ibadah and so on.
Okay, great. So we said the first step was to be in line with the Sunnah. Secondly, we're saying to be on the footsteps of the companions. And the third point, Sheikh, is the danger of following newly invented matters, or in Arabic we would say bid'ah. What is the importance of this?
As we talked about that before, we have 4 major principles in the deen that we need to guard. And that's related to La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. La ilaha illallah, there are 2 things. The tawheed, the oneness of worship of Allah, versus shirk, associating partners with Allah. We need to know both so that we avoid shirk and hold fast to the tawheed. The sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ by saying Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, that means we follow the Prophet ﷺ. What negates that, the same way the shirk negated the tawheed, what negates the sunnah is the bid'ah, is people innovating in the deen, following other than the Prophet ﷺ, in which people would make up their own ways, their own tariqah, their own way. This is how you purify yourself. This is how you worship Allah. Where did you come up with this? Unless it's from the way of the Prophet ﷺ. These innovations in the religion, it doesn't take the person anywhere but further away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Opposite to what the person is seeking. Not everyone that is seeking to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Truthfulness or sincerity alone is not enough unless we follow the way of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So when people invent ways and they play with the hearts of the people and they would tell them to try that and then they would feel again. They said this 1,000 times, or they did this act of salah, or whatever, and each sheikh or each person has his own way, his own specific adhkar, and he orders his murideen, his students, to say that in specific manner, and this is the only way of salvation, and so on. Where is that from the way of the Prophet ﷺ? And how would we know that this is right? Is it based on it feels good, it looks good, and so on? No. We have to make sure that we're asking what is the way of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that when it comes to matters of ibadah and purification of the soul.
Okay, so Sheikh, the next thing would be that should we pay attention and take care of this particular way, the correct way to approach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You mentioned that the key to success is the sincerity to Allah, and secondly, being on the footsteps of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So how important is it that we take care of this path?
Now, this is the only way that we can really seek our own salvation. And that's why it's a very specific path. It's not something of some virtuous words or some general terms. No, it's very specific. And that's why it's knowledge. And that's why we need to specify this and to study in this program and others how to specifically purify our souls from all aspects of the religion. And the most important one is the Aquidah. The matters of belief and the 6 pillars of Al-Iman. To learn them right, correct, according to the Quran and the Sunnah, and to learn them in such a way that it would affect the deeds of our hearts. Because the hearts have belief and actions. There are 2 things in the heart that needs to be secured. The belief part of it and the actions done by the heart. Sincerity, the love of Allah, the fear of Allah, hoping for the rewards from Allah, to be pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of these are actions that we need to learn how to have it in our hearts, and what does it mean, each of these actions, according to the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that's the subject of the Aqidah only by itself.
Okay, and Sheikh, is it fair to say that all affairs with regards to the deen, be it law or be it purification of the heart, that the deen is complete and that there is no room for somebody to come with something new, even if they say it's good for the deen.
Right. There is no such a thing. Yes, the deen is perfected and it's complete. But someone might say, but there is no ijtihad among the ulama. This is a different subject. We're talking about there is nothing new in the religion when it comes to matters of belief, Aquidah, when it comes to matters of ibadah. No ijtihad for someone to say, for example, that I see the situation nowadays in such a way, we'll add another salah for the people. So instead of 5, we'll make it 6.
Okay.
Because the world changed. Right? This is my ijtihad. This is deviation, of course. This is, very evil. So when it comes to matters of belief, matters of ibadah, there's no room for innovation or anything like this. When it comes to the rulings and the new things that came up, like certain systems or certain transactions and so on, this is where we get the ijtihad of the ulama to figure out whether this is permissible or not, based on the laws and the principles of the Sharia, of course. But how to make dhikr, how to make ibadah, how to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how to believe, all of that is from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and it's perfected.
Excellent. Sheikh, I want to also look at the aspects with regards to Aqidah. We find that some people, when they study Aqidah in depth, they actually become more confused, or they start to become a little bit further away from Allah than they should be. And what do I mean by that is, especially when people are talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, and they look at his names and his attributes, and they go too far, and they try to rationally understand everything, they end up becoming more confused than they started off with. Why is that the case?
If that happens, it's because the person is going beyond the limits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he set for us. When we talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're talking about the best subject ever. And the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one of the most important means to purify our souls and our hearts, because it's about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He's the one that purified our hearts. So these names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and they're mentioned for us to learn them and to reflect upon them and to have the proper belief about them. And we should not go further more than what is being mentioned. And that's why if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Himself and He subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful, it means He is the most merciful. And nothing is the like of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Can a person go beyond this and say, how is the essence of this? How can I really comprehend it? And if we don't have evidences, we don't go that further step. We believe in it the way it is. We understand the meaning of it perfectly, right? And we say nothing is the like of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we become busy with what's the effect of that name to myself?
Oh, no.
And how can I, if it's something that we're ordered to have mercy. So how can I have mercy in my heart towards others and so on? And how can I receive the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
Right.
By being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and so on. And that's the same with all of the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, without making any resemblance, without denying it, without distorting the meaning of it. This is a matter of belief. Because if a person does not follow these ways of the early generations of Islam and start going into it with his own opinions and so on, immediately the corruption is present in the heart. Whether we know how it's corrupted or not, but this is because a person is deviated.
Subhanallah, Shaykh, it's amazing to see how somebody who has a sincere intention can be led astray, even when it comes to the names and attributes of Allah. Because like you just mentioned, the objective of those names is for you to use them, to understand them, so that you can call upon Allah with those names.
Right.
Not so that you debate on the essence of it, or how does it look like, or how does it behave. SubhanAllah.
Right. And it's all based on having the manners with the text, with the evidences. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed something, we believe in it, we know what it means. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not reveal something, that means being slaves of Allah, we don't go beyond and we try to find what is not revealed to us. How is it? This is not our job.
Okay, Shaykh, on that note, we're going to take a very short break, and then when we come back, we will talk about the remaining part of our episode. Dear viewers, let's take a very short break here, and then when we come back from our break, we'll have a look at the questions that we had put out on the course, and also be looking at the question of the week and see who's been answering our questions correctly. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll be mentioning your names. So stay tuned, and inshallah ta'ala, we'll be having a very interactive session after the break. So I'll see you in just a few moments.
Lord, change our hearts.
Allah is my heart's My dear viewers everywhere, welcome to another live edition of your program, Ask Aquidah. Our phone numbers, هي code 002-0238-555, 131 or 132, and the Facebook page is Dr. Muhammad Salah Official. Being able to get up for Fajr, to pray Fajr on time or to attend the Fajr in Jama'ah is the outcome of many practices. يعني, it is the result of working hard to increase your iman, is working hard to remain steadfast on the straight path.
I have a question. Actually, I would like to start. Actually, I am a revert who is working in KSA from past 3 years, and I'm basically from India. So my question is like...
Not to forget that Allah the Almighty made this ummah, the ummah of Muhammad, peace be upon him, superior because of this quality. The quality of enjoining what is good and forbidding what is evil.
Because this is very important, even in our country, in Muslim countries or non-Muslim countries, there are people who don't know how to do the ghusl. And I tried all the websites and YouTube videos, but I don't know which one is authentic. But if it comes from Huda TV, that would be something authentic, and I can forward it, and we can share it with other people. That would be a great favor for us.
Keep in my heart your remembrance, and in your deen allow me to advance. Help me in my quest.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk.
I could agree that institutional racism does exist, and to be precise, we should define institutional racism, and that is hidden or non-apparent racism within an organization or an institution. I have witnessed it, maybe in half Saudi. My last name is Arab. So when I moved to the States back in 2002, after the incidents of 9/11, I did face some racism.
I think it can be what you do, but in the sense of without thinking. The things you do naturally without having to stop and think, that just come out.
Okay.
This innate nature of you, and how you think, and the way you see things.
We can get your insights on the two different countries, inshallah, further on into this conversation. Mamadou, if I can come to you, what's your thoughts on institutional racism, especially in the UK? Do you think it's really prevalent there?
The way we live, it's kind of a combination of two things: our language, and then what we believe in. So if we have got a language without believing in something, so it will be useless. So we have to get like both things going together.
I'm calling your name. Oh, Allah. Change your heart, Lord, change our heart.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, dear viewers, joining us here in our live program, Gems of the Heart. We started off in the first segment talking about the various aspects of Aqidah or belief that are connected to the heart and how they can have a practical significance to the heart. Dear viewers, as you are aware, Gems of the Heart is a very interactive program where we are inviting students from across the world to join us on our Facebook page to get involved and to answer questions and to complete courses, as you have seen us doing so. Also, our phone lines now are open, so do call us. You will see our numbers running across the screen. You have two numbers there, and they are there across your screens. And the code, if you're calling from outside of Egypt, is in the brackets 002. So please call us, give us your questions, your comments, your queries, anything you would like to add to this program. So we'll be coming to all of your questions that you have brought forward to us on our Facebook page towards the end of the program, so do stay tuned. And I will be making mention of the names of those who answer the questions correctly. And in particular, we'll be talking about the course and the people who successfully completed that with the top marks. We'll be doing that at the end. But let me just remind you, dear viewers, our question from last week was about in which surah does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mention the story where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's heart was washed with Zamzam. Now, the answer to that is it's not a direct answer, but you have to do a little bit of investigation. I'll leave you to do your research. The phone lines are open, callers, and the Sheikh is here as well to receive your questions. Okay, Sheikh, let's go back to our discussion. Next question, Sheikh, what about when we talk about Aqidah, the belief in Allah? Now, many a times we can study the existence of our Creator, but our Iman doesn't increase. Why is that the case? And how should we approach this concept of Aqidah, the belief in Allah, so that we can become better Muslims?
Now, the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as it's mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, is not just about the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is given in the hearts of all human beings. But to witness the rububiyyah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He is the Lord, and He's the only one worthy of worship, and then to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with His names and attributes. The rububiyyah or the lordship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is something that needs to enter our hearts, and that's how it purifies the heart. What do we mean by rububiyyah of Allah? That He's the Lord of the alameen, He's the owner of all things. It has an effect in the heart. That means our ownership is not complete. He's the owner of all things. He owns us even. That means I don't have the freedom to do whatever I want. It's all by the permission of Allah. So why not to be willingly doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants me to do? And that's how these types of meanings would protect our hearts and purify our heart. And He is the one that life and death is in His hands, and He's the provider. All of these from the meanings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being the Rabb of the alameen. And therefore He's the only one worthy of worship, and that's why we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. When we follow the Prophet ﷺ in matters of ibadah, this is how to purify our souls. The salawat, the dua, the charity, all of these deeds only for the sake of Allah. If a person is showing off or associating partners with Allah, then he's corrupting his soul, he's corrupting his heart. And then getting to know the names and attributes of Allah. How many of us really went through all the names and attributes of Allah that are mentioned in the Quran only, and to reflect upon them? Not just to hear the name and that's it, or to call our sons Abdul Rahim, Abdul Rahman and that's it, but really to reflect upon them and to see what is the effect of that. How beautiful that is, because it's beautiful names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And how can that affect our hearts with the proper belief? And then it would show in our actions and speech and so on. We would always make remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if we really have the proper belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay, and Sheikh, looking at that, the names and attributes and Allah Azza wa Jal from a practical angle, I can say for my own self, from my life, that when you understand that Allah yuhyi, He's the one who gives life. Where you meet, He is the one who takes life. And when you see somebody die in front of you, you can see that adjective or that sifa come alive. Or if you see a child being born, how the child is developed and how it is born. This is another practical side in which your iman just flies and rocket high.
Right, and that's why at-tafakkur, or reflecting upon these things, that how it increases the iman and it strengthens the belief. Like even this yuhyi wa yumit, we are given life. This is such an honor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us life. He's the one that gave us life. We are nobody, right? And you find yourself all of a sudden alive. This is an amazing thing. And He's the one that will take our souls back. And He entrusted us with certain things. So therefore we need to recognize that. We need to witness the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His rububiyyah and uluhiyyah and so on.
Okay, Sheikh, we have got a phone call, inshallah ta'ala, and I think this is answering our question. So let's go to the phone call and we come back. We have Brother Samir calling us from the United Emirates. Assalamu alaikum. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Alhamdulillah.
Okay, would you like to answer the question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
The answer is Alam Nashrah. What Al Nashrah?
MashaAllah. Sheikh, is that the correct answer?
Yes.
Okay, MashaAllah, Brother Samir from the United Emirates, you have the correct answer, and you are the first person to tell us as well. So MashaAllah, Tabarakallah, you are the winner of the week, if I can say that. Well done, Brother Samir, MashaAllah. Okay, he's gone. Dear viewers, you can also call in and share with us your thoughts as well. The phone lines are still open. I'm very happy Brother Samir has been the first person to call and to take the prize. Well done, Tabarakallah. Sheikh, MashaAllah, people are getting involved.
Right, MashaAllah. And it's a good for a person to read the Quran. Although the surah does not really explicit talk about this incident that happened when the Prophet ﷺ was young, but it talks about the breast of the Prophet ﷺ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expanded it for him. So usually the story is mentioned in this context, but the surah actually does not explicitly say that this is what happened from the surah.
Okay, excellent. So Brother Samir did some homework. He was
Yes.
reading the tafsir and he picked it out.
Right, mashallah. MashaAllah. May Allah bless our ummah,
MashaAllah. Okay, Sheikh, the next point of Aqidah with regards to our hearts is looking at some of the aspects of the unseen. So when we are taught about the mizan, the scale, how does our belief in the scale increase our iman or purify our hearts?
We believe that the scale is a real scale. It's a physical scale. And if the heavens and the earth are put on one side of it, it would be sufficient for it. Because this is what the Prophet ﷺ said. So it's a mighty, humongous creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in the Day of Judgment, the deeds and the people and their actions will be weighed on the scale. Good deeds versus bad deeds. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most high. Things are not just done for no reason. So this is a very serious, you imagine yourself. Anytime we talk about the hereafter as a way to purify our souls, this is something that should be in our hearts with certainty. Something that is coming ahead. So try to picture, how things will be when a person is standing and his deeds are being put on the mizan, on the balance of the deeds. How would that heart of that person be? One hasana can be sufficient for the person to enter Jannah. One bad deed that would outweigh the good deeds can be the reason for the person to be thrown into the hellfire. So what kind of heart that would be when the person is witnessing this? Right? And how much regret would have, a person would have looking back at this world when wasted so much of his time, of his life, without being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the sins he sees it in front of his eyes being put on the balance of his deeds. And so this is a very serious matter, and this is what we need to take ourselves from this materialistic life to get into the hereafter, to see what's good and what's bad and what takes the person to Jannah and what's not. And then we come back with this in this life to do something now before it's too late. And this is basically what purifies the soul. So the relationship between the belief, and the actual actions that we have in purification of the soul. Not like some of these people that deviated from the truth and they say there's not really any mizan or any balance. It's just a metaphorical meaning of this is all corruption.
Okay.
And that's why we need to have this submission to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to us.
And the issue of the mizan, this is something mentioned inside of the Quran, is that correct?
Right, it's mentioned in the Quran, many verses in the Quran.
Okay.
Now, but whether it's the mizan in this life, the balance of what is right and what is wrong, and وَنَضَعُ الْمَوَازِينَ الْقِسْطَ لِيَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says we'll put the balance of justice in the Day of Judgment. And the Prophet ﷺ said that the mizan, or the balance, is of two sides. So it's a physical thing.
So Sheikh, when you talk about the mizan, and you just try to imagine yourself on that day, and I think the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned that we will stand in front of Allah naked, barefooted, and uncircumcised.
Right.
And we will be given account.
Right, and when Aisha radiallahu anha, she asked the Prophet ﷺ that people will stand naked, that means they're looking at each other, and the Prophet ﷺ told her, Ya Aisha, they are in such a matter that they have no concern whatsoever to be concerned about that.
SubhanAllah.
And so that means, imagine the hearts. Everybody's waiting for the decision or for the call to be made, whether he's going to be in everlasting joy or everlasting misery. 1 second in hellfire, it's not an easy thing. Right? So this moment is coming, and the matter is getting closer and closer. And it's not too far as we think. Right? Death is at any time. It's very close to us. And then once after that, it's all part of the hereafter.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that verily the hour has come close, but the people are still ghafilun. They are still in heedless. And they don't care.
اقترب للناس حسابهم وهم في غفلة معرضون. The hisab, the reckoning, is drawing closer to the people, and they are in ghafla, they are in forgetfulness, turning away. So this is something that when we read this, right, how would that should affect our hearts? We should not be turning away. We should not be in ghafla. And that's why the remembrance of death, if it escapes the heart for a second, we are in ghafla. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, frequently mention the destroyer of desires, death. It does not make you sad in this life, makes you serious in this life.
SubhanAllah. Talking about death, Sheikh, the next point I'd like to discuss with regards to Aqidah and the heart is that of the grave, especially the punishment of the grave. It's reported that Uthman, when he would stand in front of a grave, he would cry so much that the companions would say that his beard became full of tears, and he would be asked, why do you cry so much? And he looked at the grave and he said, if you pass this test, then the next one will be easier. And if you fail this one, then the next one will be more difficult. What's the connection with the punishment of the grave in our hearts?
It's a matter of belief, matter of Aqidah, And it affects our hearts because it brings the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the heart. The fear of Allah, its place is in the heart, and that purifies the heart from the fear of other than Allah. It makes us fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and fear the actions that will bring the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on us. And it will make us love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to be pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the questions that will be asked in the graves, who is your Lord, what is your religion, who is the man that was sent. So if you're pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as your Lord, if you're pleased with the religion of Islam as your religion, if you're pleased with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam being the messenger of Allah, then you'll be able to answer these questions. So this is all matters of belief, that the heart is purified with these types of matters of belief. And also we need to visit the graves. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, كنت قد نهيتكم عن زيارة القبور فزوروها فإنها تذكركم الآخرة. I used to forbade you from visiting the graves, but now visit the graves, because it reminds you of the hereafter. So the ghafla is a disease in the heart. Forgetfulness is a disease in the heart. How to purify ourselves from this disease of forgetfulness? One of which, go visit the graves, look at your future home. It's not a palace anymore. It's not a comfortable bed anymore. It's a hole in the ground. And what goes with the person? Nothing but his deeds. Everything is left behind.
SubhanAllah. Sheikh, also with regards to the grave, is this something which is also mentioned inside of the Quran, or is it extracted from the Sunnah?
The grave and the punishment or the delight in the grave is mentioned in the Quran and in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. In the Quran it talks about the angels taking the souls of the believers and taking the souls of the disbelievers. وَلَوْ تَرَى إِذْ يَتَوَفَّى الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مَلَائِكَةُ يَضْرِبُونَ وُجُوهَهُمْ وَأَدْبَارَهُم. That if you see, O Muhammad ﷺ, the angels taking the souls of the disbelievers, beating their backs and their faces and so on. So this is at the moment of death. And the people of Fir'aun, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would say to them when they died, they are witnessing the hellfire in the morning and in the evening. And in the day of judgment they would enter the hellfire, all by the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is all from evidences, not just in the Sunnah. The Sunnah, of course, there's so many evidences and hadith, but also in the Quran, the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay, excellent. Sheikh, at this moment, with your permission, if we can make mention of the names of those who answered our question correctly, and then we can...
Sure.
Okay, inshallah. Dear viewers, let's make mention of some of your names that answered the question correctly on our Facebook page, and that's Gems of the Heart. And we have a number of different names here. First and foremost, we'd like to give a big thank you to Brother Samir from the United Emirates, who called us and gave us the correct answer. At the same time, we have Sister Mary Oli, who also answered the question correctly. And then we have Sister Fatima Asif, who also answered the question correctly. And we have Itfa Alam, who also answered the question correctly. MashaAllah, well done, all of you, all four of you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your efforts for you going into research and looking into the explanation of that particular chapter in the Quran. We will be giving you another question very shortly, and hopefully we will hear your names again and more. And we want to try to encourage more and more people to get involved. Sheikh, just on this point, can I ask you to give us some words of encouragement for those who are watching on why it's... Sorry, we've got a phone call, Sheikh. Sister Fatima calling us all the way from Nigeria. Sister Fatima, assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, brother.
Sister, how are you?
Salam, brother. Fine, thank you. Please, I have, for the past 3 weeks, let me say, I've been getting scared, anxious, feeling as if I'm dying. So I don't know, maybe the Sheikh can give an advice on such kind of feeling. I get anxious, I get scared, and afraid as if I'm going to die.
Okay, is there any particular reason, sister, or is it just a feeling?
Just the feeling, nothing, I'm fine, I'm not sick, just a strange feeling.
Okay, inshallah. Thank you, Sister Fatima, for calling us from Nigeria. We will give the question to the Sheikh and hopefully get some response. Let's take that and then we'll move forward. The sister is saying that she has feelings of anxiety and stress, and she feels very depressed or very down. What advice can you give her?
I think that she's dying and things like that.
Yeah, she's feeling like she's going to die.
If it takes the person out of the norm, that makes the person have anxiety and makes the person disturbed, this is not the right way, of course. And that's why it's either there's something physical that the sister needs to pay attention to and to ask the people of expertise in this, But before that, she can rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to have the proper belief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful, and He created us to have mercy on us. And everything is by its prescribed time. Nobody can bring something closer or further away. The moment of death is something that is written, before our creation. So to leave the matter to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to see why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us, this is what we need to focus on. Right? And when the Prophet ﷺ said, frequently mentioned death, is to affect our deeds, not for us to be sitting and being sad and so on. It's to affect our deeds, to do deeds for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeking rewards in the hereafter. But for some people, it might be some physical issues where there's chemistry, being, hormones or so on, being excreted. And that's why it's important to also seek, maybe if there is need for medical help, but to rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, read Quran, make the adhkar of the morning and in the evening, say the adhkar before you go to sleep, recite Surah Al-Baqarah in the house, takes away the shaitan. Don't let the whispers of shaitan go on with you. Push it away by being busy. With
Sheikh, what about, would you suggest her to do ruqya on herself?
Yes, doing ruqya on herself, reciting Surah Al-Fatiha on oneself, Ayatul Kursi, making sure that the adhkar is being done, the salah on time, the dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to relieve you from such a thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful. Go away, inshallah.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Sheikh, for that answer. Dear viewers, at this point I'd also like to talk about our course that we have set up. And mashallah, with the help of the Sheikh and with the help of Huda TV, we've put a course together, and it's free for all of the students. If you go to our Facebook page, that's Gems of the Heart, you will see after every episode there are questions that are put up for you to review and to do some research on. And then inshallah ta'ala we give you some questions. And you can see the questions there on the screen, talking about the question from last week, about the question of the Zamzam. And then your answers follow through, and we have people that are monitoring and checking, and we are all trying to participate in that. But the course itself, which is the tutorials, there is a list of questions that are based upon the previous program. And it's a structured course, and we inshallah ta'ala trying our very best with the help of the Sheikh to bring about some kind of positive change within ourselves. Now, dear viewers, on that particular program we have two sisters who, mashallah ta'ala, out of 15 questions, they've got 15 out of 15. And it's very impressive, and they worked very hard. One of the sisters, her name is Asma Saeed, and she comes from Egypt, and she's a student at Al-Azhar University. So Sheikh, would you like to give a thank you to Sister Asma Saeed, who did, mashallah, got 15 out of 15.
MashaAllah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless her knowledge and make her benefiting to others, mashallah.
Excellent. And there's another sister as well who got 15 out of 15, but mashallah, out of humbleness, she requested we don't mention her name, but she did very well as well, and they were the two top students, and they did very well. You'll be getting another set of questions very shortly after this program, and they will be all based upon the content of what the Sheikh has said, and we hope that they are of benefit. Sheikh, can I also just give us some words of encouragement for people to get more involved and to take this course more seriously and progress, inshallah?
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran many places about the virtues of knowledge, and this is not what I'm going to mention specifically because this is all over the Quran and the Sunnah, but this is the way to protect ourselves from all kinds of tribulations and trials that we witness nowadays with ilm, with knowledge. And the knowledge covers everything and every aspect in our life. And for people, those they have no means to gain this knowledge, whether it's the lack of people of knowledge or being in faraway places or sisters and so on, it's important that we learn. And when we find to learn the authentic knowledge based on the Quran and the Sunnah, whatever we have. But to leave ourselves and to waste our life, really there's no real enjoyment of the deen unless we learn. The more we learn, the more we will enjoy this deen, and we will more be steadfast on the deen of Allah.
Okay, excellent, Sheikh. We push for time. So can I ask you to give us the homework for this week? What is the question for the students?
Why don't you, inshallah, go ahead, you say. You're the
okay, so the question for this week the Sheikh would like to ask is, what are the three conditions of shafa'ah? Okay, so the concept of shafa'ah. What are the three conditions of shafa'ah? You can see the question there on your screens. So do answer the question. We'll be putting up a post on our Facebook page. Give us your answers, three conditions, the answers, and inshallah ta'ala we'll be reading your names out in our upcoming program. Dear viewers, I would like to remind you to get involved in our program on Facebook. Join us there. You will see our group, Gems of the Heart. We'll be going through structured questions, is procedure, a course, inshallah ta'ala, hoping to bring out the best from these programs. I'd also like to give a very big thank you to Brother Samir, who called us from the United Arab Emirates. MashaAllah, well done. Also, Sister Fatima from Nigeria. Sister, I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala eases your problems and makes things better for you. We will all remember you in our prayers. And also Sister Asma Sa'id, mashallah, may Allah increase you in your knowledge. May Allah make you a beacon of this ummah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make you a source of benefit for all of us here. Thank you very much, everybody. I'd like to conclude here. Firstly, Sheikh, thank you very much for coming again and giving us your knowledge.
It's my pleasure.
I'd like to say to you,
Walaikum salam.
Thank you very much. Also, dear viewers, I'd like to give you my salams, and I will see you next week at the same time, at the same place here on our fantastic program, Gems of the Heart. So until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Be mindful of what you say. Be sincere when you pray. Today could be your last day in the same heart. Only you can change your heart. We call upon you to do so that we may submit to you.